Right. Thanks. I'm Nathan. I'm an alcoholic. Um, it's great
Hi,
to be here.
Nathan.
Hi,
Thanks very much for
Nathan.
having me, Kristen. Thanks for not telling me there were 140 people on this meeting. Fortunately, I can just do as far as I know, there's only 25 people here, so I'm going to keep it in the grid view. Um, yeah, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy that I was able to hit a meeting directly before this and come directly from that meeting. It's just really freaking cool. I love the mobility of being able to check out not only meetings far and wide, but meetings on the same night that used to be logistically impossible to get to. I mean, I don't know if you can swear here, but I fucking love meetings. And I've been doing A for my sobriety date's September 18th, 1994. I came in at 21. That wasn't my first attempt to get sober. My previous attempt came at 19, and the reason it didn't stick then, I can consolidate to one reason, which is that I didn't ask for help. I didn't get a sponsor. Um, a lot of what I say, consequently, too, are going to come from notes that I took from the speaker from the last meeting, and I didn't get a chance to comment. So, for better or worse, you know, uh, I think it works for me. But she didn't have a sponsor, and that made me think that I needed a sponsor in the early days. Right. I mean, right away when I came in, because one thing that was essential then and has remained essential is the concept of accountability. Um, I cannot be accountable to myself. Um, and, this program from the day one, when one alcoholic helped another, um, I have to be accountable to the new person. I have to be accountable to pretty much any other member of AA that I come in contact with. My brain is suspect, and my motivations for doing things sometimes go pretty deep, much deeper than I recognize. And so, I like to bounce everything today off other alcoholics. It's just kind of a best practices thing for me. I guess just to start a little bit, talk about at the beginning. I mean, I basically drank for 5 years total, but almost immediately I was a blackout drinker. And I just fucking, I mean, I just love drinking. It's like you hear people come up with causes and conditions and reasons. I mean, I drank because I'm an alcoholic, and because when I got that buzz after a couple drinks, um, two things happened. I fell in love with myself and the world, um, and the world fell in love with me. And simultaneously, I freaked the hell out because I was worried I was going to lose that feeling. And for the rest of that night, those two simultaneous things were at play until basically, um, you know, I ran into something and I had to stop drinking, be it jail, passing out, whatever. Um, if it were up to me, I would have I would continue to drink, and in the last days, I mean, that's what I did. And then I started to get consequences, and the option to drink or not was basically taken away from me. But from 15, 15 and a half, I started drinking. I fell in love. It was great. I saw consequences almost immediately. And I never experienced, when I hear people in meetings talk about how, that highball after work turned into, two, and then it turned into, not just a long day's work, but, waking up in the morning was cause to drink. I never, I went directly from my first drink to oblivion. I don't know what a drink's for, basically. You know, when I hear people talk about their favorite drinks, or, you know, they go to a bar, that's one thing that kills me. You know, people go to a bar, and you know, the bartender asks them what they want, and they have like a drink. You know, I mean, for me, it was anything that had alcohol, whether it was a 64-ounce thing of malt, you know, Old English 800, you know, uh, rubbing alcohol, cooking wine. I just needed that feeling. So, you know, that's probably just about all I think in the beginning that I want to share. I mean, I guess, you know, like I said, I at 19, my parents, there's an intervention. My parents sent me to rehab, um, primarily to help me avoid going to jail, because I'd gotten a string of arrests, and bad check writing, and so they basically cleaned shit up for me. Um, and you know, and then, like I said, I came out of treatment. Um, I didn't have a concept of I had a concept of sobriety, but I didn't understand that. Um, I didn't understand the concept of not being able to drink ever again. You know, even in one day at a time. You know, increments. I just didn't understand. You know, I understood that I had flunked out of college, gotten fired from multiple jobs, got in trouble with the law. I mean, I understood all that shit. Um, but you know, the insanity that kind of kicked in again once I got into treatment and had about a week out was that, if I do certain things myself, then that stuff's not going to happen to me again. And my great ideas were just as fantastic as they are in the book. You know, drinking every other day, drinking organic wines, drinking, you know, my favorite was a solemn oath. You know, I would go to the store, buy a nice pen and a journal, and then I would write on the first page something like, you know, I will never drink again. You know, and my solution was reading that, you know, just reading that line. Like that was my action, because I didn't know any better, you know. And that's the thing I try to glean from people's leads that I hear, is that all the destruction in the final days that they experienced, you know, all that stuff that happened to them and that they kind of, you know, caused to happen to other people. Um, like, we don't know any better. Like, we're not doing all of this to, for the purpose of damaging. We're doing this for the purpose of surviving, you know, and uh, for saving our ego from annihilation. Um, you know, it's not the things, it's not the consequences, like jail and all that shit that happened to me too in the final days. The biggest thing that I hold on to remind myself of why I never want to go back ever to drinking is that fucking fear, that terror of what the hell, like, am I doing? Who do I talk to? How do I talk to people? Like, I want help. Um, like, what's this person gonna say if I mean, I don't know how to talk about emotions. Like, you know, I'm scared. Like, at every turn, I'm scared. Um, you know, so we try our best. Like, that's our best, you know. And uh, so anyway, I try to remember that utter terror and bewilderment, um, not only of waking up after blackouts, you know, trying to figure out what the hell I did, but terror of like knowing I need help, but not knowing what the fuck to do about it. Um, and fortunately, I mean, there was a second intervention. You know, I went to treatment. This time it wasn't Hazleton in Minnesota. This time it was a reconverted motel in you know, Nowheresville, Iowa, and that's exactly what I needed. And it was great. And I was so broken down, um, and all I could do was say, yeah, like, yes, I recognize, like, that I had no life. Um, you know, yes, I understand that, and yes, please tell me what to do. Um, you know, and I looked at the steps. You know, I didn't know what the hell like how to work those. Those seemed like yet another thing in my life that I was going to fuck up. You know, like I thought I was a complete piece of crap, like most of us did when we came in. So I'm gonna have to study. Like I'm gonna have to like go to like these classes for a period of time and try to pass or something. Like what? Um, but what happened that made the difference between that second time I went to treatment and the first time was that some guys came into treatment to talk about the steps, and I identified with one of them that was younger, had about 2 years sober. And as an aside, by the way, last night I was able to I went to my home group from 25 years ago in Nowheres, Iowa, the Crossroads group. Um, like I was more nervous than I am talking to like a meeting of 150 people. It was the weirdest fucking thing. But you know, this guy Bill was still there from years ago. But God, that was a solid group, man. It was in a one room church house, you know, at Crossroads in the middle of a cornfield. And like I said to, you know, in my comment during that meeting, like, you guys saved my life. You know, I needed a church in the middle of nowhere, the Crossroads. Like, anyway, so some guys came in, they talked, you know, I identified and I said, you know, okay, this is me just saying it normally, but like, I guarantee that I said it with a smirk, like, because I was all about the smirks back then, you know, despite how shitty I looked. I said, you know, get on my knees, you know, and say the third step prayer with you, dude, like in your apartment, because that's what you did, and you have 2 years sober. Yes, please. That's what I'll do, you know. And I do that with sponsees today. Anyway, one thing about talking about this program that happens 10 times out of 10 is the second before I think I don't have anything to say. Like, they're gonna think I'm boring. They're gonna think I'm like I don't really have 26, you know, 25 and a half years. And then I start talking about it and I'm like, fuck, man, it's powerful. And it's not me. Like, you know, I get in these meetings and I just turn it over, and you know, I'm sitting here watching Kristen the whole time and like getting this like power from her, even though she's eating, you know, and it's a little bit, yeah. Anyway, but this is great. But so anyway, so I just put one foot in front of the other with the sponsor, did everything the sponsor asked me to do, and and exactly like I have heard thousands of times, my life got better. You know, I fumbled my way into better relationships with my family. I, you know, fumbled my way through paying shit back. God, like the journey has been awesome, you know, and my life today. Well, I'll get to my life today part in a little bit. Going back though, I did a lot of shit that they said not to, you know, which probably the majority of people do. I got into a relationship right away, you know, and surprise, surprise, that energy that I used to put into drinking and drugging, and all that stuff, kind of took a little detour around steps, helping other people and whatever, and went to this girl that I met, you know, and that was a shit show. And but I learned stuff. Like, one thing that I do today, which you can't, you know, being sober, you know, even if you're not the brightest bulb, you know, like myself, like if you're sober, you're still going to retain stuff from experience. And along the way, I retained stuff from that relationship. I mean, I've done stuff I'm not proud of in recovery. Like, I've stolen in recovery. Like, I've cheated on significant others in recovery. I've lied. I've lied in the last couple of weeks. You know, I told my 10th step partner about it. You know, that's life. But well, anyway, okay, the that's life thing I'm going to reserve too for the end. I'm getting way ahead of myself. And of course, my timer still says 20 minutes, so I'm assuming I've a lot less than that. Anyway, you know, this lead that I heard before this, she talked she talked about a lot of things that I leave out a lot of times in my talks, which is, mainly, so the things I do to not die or go to jail, is not drink, first and foremost. I don't drink a day at a time. That may seem obvious, but to somebody like me who didn't understand the concept of, the first drink begets a drunk, that's important. I go to meetings, 5 to 7 a week. I have a sponsor. I have sponsees. I connect with them all once a week at least. I pray. I have a functioning higher power, which is probably completely different from all 133 of the people here, and that's okay. And one thing that at one point in my sobriety I would have been embarrassed to say, but I have no freaking idea like what my higher power is, what it does, like what it looks like, how it works. Basically, my higher power is the actions that my sponsor told me to do in the beginning. So my higher power, my spirituality doesn't work through this entity. My higher power works like through the energy that it takes for me to like put one step in front of the other. Say yes to Kristen when she asked me to speak. Be honesty, willingness. Like God is all over those concepts. And I've really just learned that concept in the last year, is that higher power, like, is not a character. It's not like some character or some figurehead. For me, it's getting off my ass, and reaching out to somebody, picking up the phone when I see it's my sponsee, even though this loud voice in my head is like, he's good. He's not going to drink. I just want to watch the last 10 minutes of this shit. So anyway, so those things I do, but on top of those, in order to stay sane, I'm depressive. I have major anxiety. I take medications for those things. I see a therapist. I practice Eastern religions. I meditate. I watch my diet. I sleep well. As far as I'm concerned, AA and sobriety, it's not a 2-dimensional thing. It's a 3 fucking dimensional thing, and I need to practice self-care. Working the steps isn't gonna make me my hygiene better, or like, it might, but it'll put the impetus there. But there's nothing in the big book about getting 30 minutes of cardio every day. Stuff like that keeps me sober and sane. And just to wrap up, more or less, in a second, a huge thing for me too, for even 25 years later, that I have to be conscientious of is asking for help and accepting help. This morning, like, we get in our heads, especially when options are taken from us, like they are now, where we're, quarantined. Like, people like me can start to get all sorts of crazy ideas when we're by ourselves. So, like this morning, I thought, twice that I had coronavirus, and that I had suffered a stroke, and that I was like, like legitimately. And then I talked to my sponsor about this. He's like, he like laughs. He's like, one thing that I've come to understand the last 20 years that I've sponsored you is, our paths were very different coming here, but we're both really huge fucking hypochondriacs, and that connection for me is huge. And that's, I could go down a whole nother rabbit hole of developing intimacy with another male figure through sponsorship that I didn't even know was possible. And, having a sponsor that says he loves me at the end of a fucking conversation. And I'm still I'm working on that still, but I'm like, do I say I love him back? Like, do I pretend like I didn't hear him? Like, but I feel good when he says that. When he says that, like, I feel cared for. And, and just finally, like the biggest thing that's happened to me in my sobriety is kind of a test of drinking or not drinking, was my dad passing away in this last July. And you know, you learn about emotions, how to express emotions, you know, fourth step stuff, anger, all that shit. But uh, you know, grieving, like if you've never been through that, like grieving, like hit me in the back of the head, and like it was the program that got me through it. I didn't drink. You know, I talked to people who told me that they had experienced that too. They didn't drink. You know, I cried in the meeting the day after that happened, with an abandon that I would never be able to do in front of my siblings, my mom, my, you know, my friends that I grew up with. So this program just means, it means everything to me. And and just finally, one thing that I love this girl said in her lead was that she can say she's proud of herself today. And I can say I'm proud of myself today. You know, I've watched myself morph in this lead from somebody who wanted everybody to laugh at everything I said and to be cheering me and like, you're the best alcoholic ever, you know, go, to being like shit, you know, everything that I've said tonight is true and I can stand behind it. And the integrity that I built in AA is better than the best drug I ever took, the best drunk, the best, you know, whatever. And channeling that honesty today, and the willingness to show up for a good, you know, dear friend, is beyond my wildest dreams. So that's all I got. Thanks.
Thanks, Nathan. Thanks, buddy.